It's the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in. Tune in.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Before we get into the episode, if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to this on. Also, leave us a 5-star rating and review. All 5-star reviews will receive a shout out. So if you do leave one, I'll definitely shout you out. Also, if you want to join the BRRRR investing community, you can do so for just $1 in your first week. Go to blackrealestatedialogue.com or click the link below in the show notes. Very excited for this episode today. Here with me, I have Tarik McAllister out of Philly. Thank you so much for joining the show today.
I appreciate you having me, bro, man. It's always a blessing and grateful to be able to get on a platform like yours and others to be able to share something that's just a passion of mine that I'll, talk about all day long.
Definitely. So I'd love for you to open up, just let the people know who you are, where you're from, what you do, all that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Tarik McAllister, born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, also known on multiple social media platforms as Rika State, the real estate educator. I started out in the real estate game when I was 21 years old. I've been in the game now 9 years. I started out pretty much straight out of college, but my journey, exposure into real estate started out even younger than that when I was a teenager working under my dad while he was a general contractor / handyman throughout my adolescent years. And, the rest is history. I've developed a little close to over 70 rental units to date, totaling about close to 30 actual physical properties. And but what I'm most proud of are the lives that we've been able to impact along the way for people to be able to learn the same exact strategies to be able to acquire real estate and establish their own portfolios and wealth building strategies.
Definitely. Love it. So one thing I want to dig into a little bit, you mentioned that you used to work with your dad, who was a general contractor and handyman.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, were you seeing it as I'm just working with my dad, just working with my dad, or were you seeing like, wow, he's working all these properties, like I want to buy some of these? Like what was your point of view at that time?
Man, bro, it was really just being with dad, you know what I mean? Pretty much like something, it wasn't a chore or like something that I dreaded doing. I loved going with him. Like I always ask him, could I go? Because I was always a sponge and like really just gravitated toward the concept of taking something that was like just looking like crazy. I call them bandos. I call the properties bandos. It's like taking a bando and just making it look beautiful, and I just gravitated toward it. What happened, something special happened for me in that moment during those adolescent years. I was able to experience it and make a decision very early on that I did not want to do the manual labor. And I gotta always, thank him for that exposure, because it allowed me to be able to make that decision based off of the actual exposure and experience.
Definitely. So I think it's dope that you were able to make that distinction and that decision at a young age. So what was it that, so you saw that, right? You saw some aspect of the real estate business, properties, rehabs, and things of that nature. But what was it for you individually? I was like, you come to a certain point and you're like, all right, I want to invest in real estate now. I want to use this as one of the ways I'm going to build wealth. What was that moment for you?
What a moment for me was when it was time to get paid, man. We would be, me and Pops, we in there getting it in. We working for someone, right? It wasn't our properties that we owned. While we did work on a couple of properties that we owned, family properties, and we had a couple rental properties, the majority of the properties were owned by other individuals. One person in particular was an older gentleman that he was working for primarily and doing a lot of bulk work for him, turning units and doing full gut renovations. And I'm like, man, like, I want to be like that. I want to be cutting the checks. You know what I mean? I want to be receiving the rent rolls and everything. And, Yeah, I'm calculating. I'm like, man, dang, we just turned like 5 units over this past couple of weeks. Like he's getting like, this is back when people were doing a lot more rooming houses and stuff like that in certain areas of Philly. I'm like, man, he getting $400 or $500 per room. It's like 10 rooms in this house. I'm like, yo, like, oh man, hold up. Like, and then we doing 6 or 7 houses just like this. And then he got other houses all over the city. I'm like, I want to be on that side. So I was I was always pretty direct and outspoken. So I'm like, I'm right at his neck. Like, look, I want to be doing that. How can I do it? And he actually introduced me to a book that, a lot of people start out and invest in, was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I did the Spark Notes. I don't know if anybody remember the Spark Notes.
I remember the Spark Notes.
yeah. Ask Jeeves and all that. I went through and just got the highlights, you know what I mean? But the concept of it is what resonated with me. And I said, okay, all right, I want to be a real estate investor. So I made that decision early on, like 16, 17. And, it didn't happen right away. I went away to college, ended up leaving Philly and getting a full scholarship to go away to college and down south. So I was going away from the market that I was interested in. But man, I went away to college to study education, another passion of mine, and actually went through the whole motions of going through college and everything. But in the back of my mind, it was always real estate, man. And, I was able to put some things together, put strategies together to be able to buy my first one, essentially as a graduation gift to myself, at the end of my senior year of college. And, but still simultaneously working my day job as an educator. And the rest is history, man.
Amazing. Where'd you go to school?
I went to undergrad at Virginia State University. Shout out to the HBCUs, go Trojans, Big Blue.
Cool.
And I did some graduate school. I'm a grad school dropout. I went to Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU, up in Richmond, Virginia. But VSU is home.
Got you. Dope, man. Dope. So you mentioned that your first property was a graduation gift to yourself. So can you tell us more about that and just what went into making that happen at such a young age?
Yeah, bro. So I got to start back at the beginning again with my dad. When I went away to college, 18, he always has like a great way of giving advice without a bunch of details. So he was like, yeah, you need to get a credit card. I'm like, all right, cool. So I go get some credit cards and stuff like that. And, for me, the basic concepts are just like paying what you owe just became natural. I don't know, like nobody told me like, oh, don't, make sure you pay your bills and stuff like that. It was just like, exposure to coming up in Philly, whatever it was. The concept of paying what you owe just resonated with me. So getting the credit card was nothing, right? So I got the credit cards, and what I basically would do is just, I'm running it up on the credit card and paying it down. I'm paying it down with refund checks and stuff like that. Every time that time of the semester is coming along, and then fast forward to my senior year, I'm aggressively now looking for houses. I'm also working a full-time job as I'm segueing out of my senior year. And I ended up picking up a second job overnight. I'm grinding. I'm like, I have a goal in mind of saving up a certain amount of money, because at the time, the other advice that I was being given by my family around me and the people in my circle was like, you got to buy the property cash. So I'm literally like hustling to get all this money up to buy my first property, and was successful in doing so. But I then ran into a roadblock where I only had the money to buy the property, but it needed to be renovated. So then, just one night on a humbug, I applied for a personal loan, which I was able to be automatically approved for because of the credit that I had been establishing all throughout college, unintentionally. And I took that money and renovated the property. Still wasn't enough. I had to start investing more into my education. At that time, it wasn't as much as a monetary investment. It was more of a time investment. A lot of YouTube, a lot of Google, books, and, just trying to get the knowledge as much as possible. 2012, 2013, 2014, the information wasn't on everybody's Instagram feed like it is right now. Like people wasn't, offering courses and mentorships and things like that. So it was super hard. People you hit up and asking for advice. They wasn't getting back to you and sending you a link in their bio. You know what I mean? So I had to figure it out. And, as I figured it out, I met people along the way, of course, who was able to give me some help along the way. And once I got the formula, man, I've been rinse, washing, and repeating it ever since. I always tell everybody that I'm still in present 2021, 2022, buying properties from the first one that I bought back in 2013.
Wow. Got it. So one thing you mentioned is buying that house in cash. Maybe this is a little controversial, but I'm gonna just ask you, what are your thoughts on buying house cash? Because there seems to be two opinions, right? Some people say, I'm only buying my house as cash, I'm not taking no debt. While others say, why wouldn't you take the debt? Why wouldn't you take the leverage? So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think that people are only qualified to give advice on things that they've experienced. I have a rule of thumb where I only talk about things that I personally experience and educate on things that I personally experience as it pertains to real estate, because it's a very hands-on business. So in regards to buying properties cash versus using leveraging, I literally bought my first 5 properties cash, and it was a snail walk. After I learned how not to do that, I was like beating myself up about buying properties cash those first few years, bro. So my perspective now is start how you know. Right. Sometimes you got to start where you are. If your mindset and your strategy is not quite there to be able to buy using leverage because of whatever reason, maybe you haven't invested in your education. Maybe you haven't met the right mentor to guide you along that process, because that was a part of why I didn't start. Right. A lot of people were telling me, family members include, like, specifically, like, don't get any mortgages. You want to buy the properties cash. You don't want to owe anybody, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm indoctrinating that. They're indoctrinating that into me and my strategy without even knowing it. Right. So I'm doing that. Right. And then I started meeting other people and learning different strategies that debunk that strategy. And it made complete sense. However, if you are one of those type of people that aren't there yet, I would rather you start with cash than not start at all, because the price is not going down, especially in a lot of these different markets, specifically my market in Philly. Like, nah, it's not going down, so the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost you. So if buying it cash is how you're going to get it right now, go ahead and do it. But I'm always going to encourage people and recommend you get some education behind it as well, so you can learn some different strategies and understand that there is 1,000 ways to do it. Like now, as I mentioned, over 70 doors, and we're in the process of inking a deal that's going to push us over 100 total doors, hopefully over the next couple of days to end this 2021 out. Like, I've either spent little to no money out of pocket, and I'm not talking about wholesaling, to acquire the doors that I now currently have. And that is all a tribute to leverage and learning and embracing new strategies.
Definitely. So you mentioned that your first couple of properties you purchased cash. Were you just working and grinding and saving up and saving up income from different sources to come up with those, to come up with the cash for those properties?
Right. So the first one, yes, that was a strategy. Like, I bought the first property cash, $23,000. The second, third, fourth, fifth came from me actually using wholesaling. So I was learning the wholesale strategy model, and I actually got into wholesaling by accident. Another one of my dad's advices, without a bunch of details, he said, I'm like, man, I can't find any houses. He's like, man, you don't see all these abandoned houses around here? Why don't you just look up the phone numbers and call the people that hold them and see if they want to sell it, right? I'm like, all right, okay. So I go online and stuff, and like in Philly's philly.gov website, go on there, you can put in an address and you can find out the known address and name of the person that owns the property. And sometimes they'll have a mailing address that's different than the actual subject property. So I'm looking up the properties, man. I get like 15, 20 addresses in the area that I'm liking, that I already bought the first one in. And I sit down one night and I write 20 letters handwritten. Hey, my name is Tarik McAllister. I want to buy your house. Here's my phone number. I sent it out. Like, you couldn't tell me I wasn't doing anything. I send those letters out. I got 0 phone calls. Got 0 phone calls. Of course, anybody that knows wholesaling, like 20 letters ain't gonna get it for you. And it's funny, I ended up finding another property, I think probably like just through Zillow, for sale by owner. And then someone actually called me from one of the letters. Hey, I got your letter. Yeah, I'm interested in selling. And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I'm cool. I already bought one. Click. And that was like my introduction to wholesaling, because I told somebody that story. And he was like, yo, what are you doing? You could have put it under contract. You could have flipped it. You could have did this. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, you can make money without buying the property? You can do what? You can assign it. So then I actually started being intentional about wholesaling, both from a deal flow standpoint and from a cash flow standpoint, for me to be able to buy my next property. So basically what I would do is I had a formula where I would try to get maybe 3 to 5 properties under contract. The intent would be to figure out which ones I wanted most. So if I had 5 properties under contract and 2 of them I really wanted, my objective was to try to close those 3 deals out, and hopefully that the assignment fee would be enough to buy the other properties. And that worked out pretty well for me to be able to acquire over 5 properties in a short period of time using the wholesale fees.
That's genius. I don't think I've heard that strategy before. So you mentioned you just try to get a couple properties under contract and try to calculate it in a way where the assignment fee for one of them would pay for the other 2. What was it like trying to balance all that? Like, were the closing times, and like, did you structure the contracts in a way where you'd be able to do it? You'd hopefully be able to execute that?
Yeah, for sure. We try to, of course, the name of the game in wholesaling is to get it sold as quickly as possible. So understanding that, I knew that I had to have buyers lined up. So a lot of people, when they're wholesaling, they're putting properties under contract that people won't even potentially want, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong with it. What I was doing is, before I was finding properties, I was finding buyers for those properties. The way I was doing that is another strategy that I learned just through the grapevine and investing in education, was a dummy listing, is what we used to call it, right? So the dummy listing was where so my family at the time, we probably had like 3 different properties, like my mom's house, my grandfather's house, and like an investment property that we had. And then I also had my personal properties that I already bought. So I literally would create listings on like Craigslist and Zillow, advertising that property was for sale. And what would happen is that I would get phone calls all day long. And the way I would price it like low. Like, so I know the property's worth 80,000. I'll be like, yeah, it's for sale for 50 right now. Like, cash offer only, blah, blah, blah. Phone is going crazy. What I'm doing is I'm capturing emails and phone numbers of people who were ready to cash out. So when I actually had deals, I'd already had these people numbers. Mm-hmm. I'm answering the phone. Hey, no, that property is not for sale anymore. And I only recommend you do this with a property that you have some sort of interest in, a family member's house or something like that, or somebody. Don't go up there putting properties up for sale that you don't own. But it worked like a charm for me, because then what happened would be, I would be on the phone like, hey, no, this one's not available. But when I do get some more available like that, that one's sold fast, I'll be sure to call you. What areas are you looking in exactly? Okay, I'm looking in the 19121 zip code. I'm looking for single families in the 19132 zip code, and I'm taking notes. So now when I'm getting actual deals under contract, these things is like sold before the ink even dries, So, I always also tell my students, mentees, and anybody I talk to about real estate, understanding your numbers is going to put you in a position to be an expert in your industry, whether you are an investor, a wholesaler, or anything in between. So when I'm presenting the deals to the end buyers, when I was wholesaling, I'm presenting the deal to them to make it make sense as if I was buying it. So my numbers were so tight, it was only a matter of if you want the deal or not. It wasn't much of a haggle. It was like, hey, look, this property is for this. And you know the numbers work. I ran the numbers. It makes sense. The cash flow is there. The construction budget, give or take about this. Market rate, you can do it for this. I'm sure you can do it cheaper, though. Hey, let me know. I got 5 other people I need to call, and the deals would get sold fairly quickly. We would get them cashed out so we can get the capital there. Then I would roll that over into buying those other properties.
Amazing. I like the creativity and just being strategic. And we're still pretty early, but it seems like you picked up different tips along the way, or even like clues, right? Like, so things your dad, shout out to dad, things your dad said just in passing, or do X, that puts you a little closer to certain strategies and to learning certain things. But what I'm realizing is that you took it upon yourself to not just sit on the game you were being given. You investigated, you try to figure out what to do, even if you tried, right? Like you had that first potential wholesale deal when a person called you back, you're like, oh, I already got one. You told somebody about it, but you kept going, right? You didn't just stop there. And thankfully you told somebody about it, because then you learned about wholesaling. And through wholesaling, you discovered, you're like, all right, maybe I could use the fee to pay for these properties. So it seems like as you kept going, you learned more and you added more tools to your tool belt.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'm a big executor on information, because that stuff has an expiration date. I mean, I've also, I'm sure others can relate as well, have gotten information and sat on it, and then eventually get around to it, and you're like, oh yeah, that doesn't work anymore. So I pride myself in, when I learn something, executing on it, because that's where the lesson is. The lesson is in the execution, because once you execute on it, you're going to be able to troubleshoot issues along the way. A great person to mentor is someone that's actually attempting to do something that they want to do, because you can work. I can always work with someone doing something the wrong way, that them not doing anything at all. It's a lot easier. So I try to practice what I preach. So
definitely. So something else you mentioned is, you bought these properties cash, but you eventually came up on some game that helped you to learn how to scale faster. Can you talk to us about what it is you learned, and just what that turning point was? You're like, wait, I'm going too slow at this. Like, I can do this at a faster pace. Tell us more about that.
I learned the infamous BRRRR strategy. So literally, another conversation in passing with an individual who was already investing in real estate. They were talking about just buy the property and then you buy it and you can just cash it out. You pull equity and you can buy another one. I'm like, wait, what are you talking about? And so I started doing research on it, and I went to YouTube University, and I have attributed my knowledge of the BRRRR strategy to a YouTube video, and the rest went like haywire from there. And I literally used to watch this YouTube video probably like 10 or 15 times a week, man, and just like breaking down every small detail of it. And it was essentially just a case study of someone breaking down a BRRRR strategy deal. And the aha moment for me was, damn, hold on. I got this one property right now that's already stabilized. I'm talking about my very first one that I bought. It's a duplex, it's cash flowing, and I don't owe anybody on it. Well, I had like a small loan on it from the personal loan, but outside of that, I didn't owe any more. I didn't have a mortgage on it. That personal loan was attached to me personally, not the property. So, and then the other ones, I owned them outright cash, but none of them were in livable condition. I just bought them outright cash, very cheap, $7,000, $6,000, $13,000. I think the most expensive one that I bought was Yeah, like 13,000. So I didn't even have the money to renovate them. But once I learned the BRRRR strategy, I went back to property number one and I refinanced the property. And it still was surreal being able to discover that, wow, they're about to give me a $70,000 check right now. Like, and that was and they were only giving me 70,000 because that's what I put down. That particular refi, I could have went up to 80%. I believe the refi back then was like, the 70,000 was actually only like maybe like 65 or 66 in the 60s. I could have went all the way up to 80% of the ARV of their property. And I'm sitting here with only this personal loan that I owe, which is still not attached to the property. And it's like 18,000. I'm like, damn, they about to give me 70. So man, I took that 70 and I ran straight to that next property and renovated that, refinanced it, rented the next one, refinanced it, and repeated the process. And then something magical happened at the fifth one. I learned the benefits and the magic of being able to use OPM, other people's money, not just through refinances, but completely throughout the entire process, both on the purchase of the property and the renovation. And then I segue into using OPM in the form of hard money lending. And then I'm already finding the deals because I know wholesaling. So I'm getting the deals now. And my buyers that I used to work with now, they like, yo, Reek, what's up with the deals? Like, you're not calling me no more. I'm like, yeah, about that. I'm keeping these Jones now. Right. And, I started actually using OPM through hard money. And they loved me because I was coming to them. I had cash reserves from wholesaling and I had a full portfolio of free and clear properties. They're like, wait, what? Wait, you don't have any debt, basically? You got a great credit score, like, and you want to get financed? And hell yeah, we'll fund you. And those guys have been funding deals for me ever since.
Wow. Lot to dig into, lots to unpack. So one thing that you mentioned is, I believe you said you took out about 65% on the first property, and you could have went up to 80. Something a lot of people talk about or think about is, oh, are you taking out too much? How much are you supposed to take out? What would be your advice there? Is it a case by case basis? Would you say there's like a certain percentage that generally still lets you cash flow enough? What would you say to that?
I'm super conservative. I like to keep 30% equity in my deals. I like to keep 30% equity in my deals, so I'm not going over 70% on a refi. There's been some scenarios where I went up to 75%, but generally speaking, I'm going up to 70% of the ARV. So like for those who don't know that lingo that we're talking, if a property after it's been renovated is $100,000, it's worth $100,000. I'm not going to refinance that property for more than $70,000 to pull it out, because my numbers, when I'm looking at it, one, that's going to guarantee a generous cash flow for me, as I don't want to just be penny pinching and making a couple $100 a month. In addition to that, I want my second potential exit strategy 3 to 5 years from now, if I decide to sell a property, to be worthwhile, and in doing so by keeping that leverage low when I'm refinancing initially. In addition to that, it gives you more options when you have more equity. What we've seen in this market over the last few years is property values are increasing and interest rates have decreased. There were a lot of properties that I was actually, because I had so much equity in them, I was able to actually refinance, keep my payments the exact same amount,
Wow,
but actually pull out more capital from the property's equity, and then take those to be able to actually go and acquire more assets. And that was all because of how I position my leverage.
definitely good, great explanation. So it seems like at this point, things started to come together. Your strategy started to get refined even more because you had the deal flow from wholesaling. So you understood how to find deals. You had a list of buyers just in case, but it seems like when you learned about the BRRRR strategy, and then later on when you learned about using OPM hard money, it seems like that allows you to potentially know what to do with even more deals. Like perhaps you didn't have to give as many away. So can you talk about just the introduction to hard money? Because a lot of people, quite frankly, they're scared of hard money, right? They think, oh, well, they're going to charge points. How am I going to do this, that, and the third? So can you just give the reality of it? Because there's a lot of speculation about hard money.
The reality of hard money lending is just like money that you borrow from any institution, whether it be for your car loan, whether it be for your rent or your credit cards. You're paying someone with interest, whether you realize it or not. Even your rent, when you're paying rent to your landlord, you're not paying them the amount that they cost them to operate the building that you live in or the house that you live in that they're renting to you. They're charging you what they need to make plus their profit, so the concept of borrowing for leverage is a concept that we all are familiar with a lot of our basic essentials, such as where we live at and transportation. So hard money lending is very simple in the sense that you pay, you stay, you don't, you won't. Or other words, if you don't pay them, they'll take the house, right? But if your strategy in the beginning and your numbers make sense, you shouldn't have anything to worry about, and even in the event that things don't go as planned, if you do your proper due diligence on the front end, you will have options galore, and that comes with the proper guidance. Honestly, a lot of people tell you get in the right rooms. Man, listen, it sounds cheesy, it sounds cliche, but it's real. Get in the right rooms, not just get in the right rooms, but get in the rooms with people who are qualified and knowledgeable on the topics that you are looking to gain knowledge on, and not just qualified from a sense of the platform that they have or the amount of followers they have, but the actual experience, documented experience of doing what you want to get into. And like that, I call that the time machine, because my 9 years of experience, I'm able to transfer it to somebody that's going to be watching this or listening to us talk right now and catapult their process potentially by several years, because we can answer some unanswered questions along the way just in a short period of time. So hard money lending is not something to be afraid of. Lending in general is not something to be afraid of. I think what you got to do is address your own character, your own discipline. A lot of it is internal that we have to address when it comes to things that we fear in the investment space, because we don't trust ourselves with money and we don't trust ourselves with the decisions that we make. So it's a big task and a great test of discipline when you have money that you could potentially jump on a plane and go to Miami for, or go and buy that sheetrock that you're supposed to buy.
Yeah. Definitely. And with the hard money lenders, do you typically work with individuals or is it like companies that you typically work with?
Combination of both. I now use hard money lenders and private lenders, because there's value in it. There's so much value in the information of being able to take something and nothing and making it into something that is of value. So there's people who are willing to invest in that, both from a private money side, because they may not have the time or the ability to do it on their own. And from a hard money standpoint, that's literally what their business is, to invest in your ideas and get a small percentage on top of the money that you're getting, that they're borrowing to you.
Definitely. And hard money, they're usually shorter term loans. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Your average hard money lender on the low end, I've seen some hard money lenders go as little as 3 months. Most projects that we're working on, we're getting 9 to 12 month hard money loans. However, there are hard money lenders that'll go up as max that I've seen at 24 months as well.
Got it. Can you talk about how important it is to complete your projects within the time frame? Because as I understand, there could be some pretty big implications if you don't complete what you're supposed to complete and have all the money back by a certain time. So can you talk about that a bit?
Are you looking for a community of like-minded individuals and access to experts in real estate?
Yeah.
Are you interested in real estate but need more support and guidance? The Black Real Estate Dialogue presents the Real Estate Investing Community. No matter how much or how little real estate experience you have, we've created a community for you because your perspective is important. All right, tell me, where's the number one place where you can do Q&A with experienced guest speakers 2 times per month? How about unlimited access to past guest speakers' recordings? What about a private Slack channel to engage in daily discussion with everybody in the community to share resources and support each other? Head on over to blackrealestatedialogue.com. That's blackrealestatedialogue.com. It's the real estate investing community presented by the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Come join us today.
What can happen, will happen in real estate, and investing and in business in general, delays that are within your control that could have been avoided and things that are just simply not in your control. So on the front end, you want to make sure that your numbers are tight. How do you make sure your numbers are tight? You get market rate numbers from qualified professionals for all of the detailed line items throughout your budget. Not how much your uncle could do it for, or such and such from around the corner said that they can do the framing for 500, but it costs 5,000. Not those type of numbers, real hardcore numbers, and then even add 10% extra on top of it. And then when you get that number, add 10 to 15% of potential contingency on top of that total budget as well. What that is going to do is enable you to have a very robust budget to be able to get through the project. And then that budget also should include your maximum amount of the full loan term interest payments. So every deal that I do, I typically structure it where I'm actually paying all of my interest for the full loan term in advance. So for example, if I have a loan term that is for 12 months at $1,000 a month, I'm going to take an additional $12,000 and give it to the lenders. Typically, we can build it in a loan, or we can do what's called an escrow account. When we're doing that, what I'm doing is I'm taking care of all of the potential payments that if everything, and I thought this project was going to take 8 months. We've had 3 months of delay. It takes us 9, 10, 11 months. It's cool. I'm not coming out of pocket additional because I already paid for it. But on a great side, if I thought I was going to take 8 months and it only took me 6 months to stabilize it and get them cashed out, guess what? I get 6 months of interest payments back. So that's a super safe way and conservative way to be able to make sure that you are protecting yourself, because in the event that you do not, and you get to that 12-month period, and what lenders will have to offer you now is what's called an extension. Mm-hmm. Typically, they'll extend that loan maybe 3 months, 6 months, based on what you negotiate, honestly, with some of them. And they'll articulate that to you typically before you sign any documents in the beginning. But what you want to do is I like to make sure a lot of the stuff that I do that I have to pay for in my budgets and in my projects are paid for at the initial closing. Because if something happens on the back end now, it's okay, I paid X amount of dollars 9 months ago. If I got to pay 1 point for an extension, it's not killing me,
Got it. Well, that's a hard money masterclass right there. I think it's
yeah.
I think it's there's just so many misconceptions, but in what you just broke down, you can see that obviously there's risk to everything, right? But you just walked me through a number of different safeguards that you put into place for when you're utilizing hard money. So I just want people to really pay attention to that, because if you do get to a point where you want to use hard money, here are some tips that you can use and consider when you're doing that. So definitely appreciate you breaking that down for us. So it seems like, again, once you figured out how to use other people's money, things kind of took off for you. So can you talk about just how it helped you to scale? Because you had the 5 properties. Talk to us about where it went from there once you figured out how to scale quicker.
Yeah, so basically, once I learned how to scale, I took those 5, and those 5 properties turned into 10. Those 10 turned into 20. And honestly, we just been doubling pretty consistently since going into real estate full time, which was 2017. middle of 2017, I officially fired my boss, went into real estate investing and development full time. 2018 was my first full year. I would take a break on the COVID year in 2020, but 18, 19, and also 21, we've essentially doubled our unit and door count, our property and door counts year over year since then. And that's all because we've been able to leverage and scale using OPM.
Definitely. And about how many doors are y'all at now?
I think I'm about north of 70 now, about 71, 72.
Wow, is it all like all in Philly?
Yeah, all in Philly. I used to own a couple of doors in Richmond, Virginia, but right before the pandemic like hit crazy, I sold my property down there. So I'm now 100% in Philly, primarily in the North Philadelphia section of Philadelphia.
Got it. Well, how many? When did you buy your first property? What year was that?
2013.
2013. Man, so it seems like 2017 to 2021, it just took off. Like the pieces started hitting.
Yeah. It really was a transition of just going all in and fully committing. I had the knowledge. I was part-timing it though, and the old saying, what you get out of it is what you put into it, right? Or what you put into it is what you get out of it, rather. And for me at that time, from 2013, just graduating college, getting my feet wet into the corporate industry or the education field and being a teacher from 13 all the way through to 2017, I was not able to be a real estate investor full time. I was on lunch breaks making phone calls in reference to wholesaling. I was taking calls early in the morning with contractors or management, people that helping me manage the property in reference to my rental properties that I had during that time frame. So I was always kind of torn in between the two until I made a commitment to myself. And really, like, I'm like a real simple person. Like, I try to keep things simple because I think a lot, my theory is that a lot of people aren't able to show you how to get to where they are because they didn't actually they weren't actually intentional about it, and they didn't document the process along the way. And for me, I've been very intentional about where I'm going and where I currently am. And back then, what I did was I had to identify what I was making a year, and I'm thinking to myself like, damn, well, I got some investments, but it's still not enough. But I'm still here stuck at this job. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate. You think that you can't get out of that 9-to-5 bottleneck because of these phantom things, like you can't get it on your own, such as a 401k or health insurance and stuff like that, right? And I had to just have a real moment with myself and like, damn, like, like you ever seen the Michael Jordan story where he was talking about like, what was it? They were recapping the 96 Bulls, and he was talking about like how he would almost in his head make up conflict with the other opponents and stuff to juice them up and getting ready. And like, I kind of was doing that like for myself with my job. I'm like, man, how much you paying me a year? $27,000 a year after taxes. Damn, that's all I'm worth. I got a bachelor's degree. I'm in graduate school. I got all this experience. It's less than 1% Black male teachers in the country, and I'm one of them. Like, I'm busting my ass, and this is what I'm worth. I'm like, no, this ain't it. So I actually took a 8x11 piece of paper, like from the computer, and I wrote 27,000. I wrote like 5 or 6 times, man. I put it all over my house. And it was a reminder of what my goal was every single day. So when I was tired, if I saw it somewhere, I'm like, all right, now I got to keep going. So then I committed to putting that extra work in, cranking out 100+ letters every other day, printing out letters, folding letters, bagging up letters, putting them in the mail in the morning. Like, I was committed to it. And what my goal was that if I can make 27,000 from wholesaling in less than the time frame that it takes me to make it in a year, I don't need this job anymore, because somehow, some way I've been able to figure it out and make it happen. At this point, making $27,000, them spoon feeding it to me every 2 weeks for 12 months. So after committing to myself and making it very clear on what I was going to do and what the goal was, man, I reached that goal in like 2 months.
Wow.
And you know, I was like, oh shit. I was up late, like, oh my gosh, like I had a couple of deals where it was like a $5,000 deal, $2,000 deal, $4,000 deal. And then like it skyrocketed and I made $72,000 for one deal. And I was like, yo, this is almost 3 times what I make in a year. Like, I gotta go, you know? So yeah, I gave him my walking papers and said so long.
Amazing, man. So now are you still making calls, or do you have like a team now? Like how is the business grown and just changed since you were able to get into it full time?
So no, I don't make calls for off market deals. Honestly, a lot of the deals that I'm buying now aren't as many off market deals. A lot of them I'm buying on the MLS. Some deals that I come past that are off market deals, they're coming through other wholesalers. My model specifically has shifted less away from having boots on the ground with wholesaling and more of continuing and maintain good relationships with those people who are already on the wholesale ground floors and just buying the deals directly from them at the price that, you know, that makes the most sense for us both. And that allows me to we have a small team. My team is very robust, so I can't have them stretched all in different ways. We're doing a lot of new construction in 2022 as well. So a lot of partnerships that I have formed along the way now are coming to fruition and blossoming into us getting a lot more primarily into the new construction space and continuing to establish our existing rental portfolios and continuing to grow them. And of course, teaching and educating the culture along the way so they can do the same thing, if not better.
Definitely. And in addition to investing, wholesaling, are there any other aspects of real estate that you've dived into?
Yeah, partnerships. I certainly leverage partnerships along the way. All of my partners are friends of mine that I either grew up with or have formed more recent in the last 5 or 6 years relationships with. Because you know you can have a lot of success, of course, on your own, but you can certainly go bigger and further together. I always say I'd rather have a percentage of a watermelon than 100% of a grape. So in conjunction with OPM through hard money lending, private lending, and also leveraging partnerships and you know, putting my friends and family on, we continue to grow. You know, I'm all about just debunking a lot of the things that, you know, historically our culture has said not to do. Don't get credit cards. We buy houses on credit cards now. You know, we leveraging credit to build wealth for this generation and the next 10. They say don't work with friends and family. All of my partners are friends and family. We own millions in real estate, and you know, I'm proud to say that, you know, the partnerships that I have with each of them individually have made all of my partners millionaires, but with just our partnerships. And, you know, and then also just documenting the process along the way so our people can spread the word and know and understand and have actionable steps on how they can do the same exact thing.
Definitely. I love that. So you mentioned new construction is coming down the pipeline for 2022. What else is in the future? Like what are some of your other goals within the real estate space?
My goal in the real estate space is to be able to really, my goal for 2021 was to reach 100 people and show them how to be able to be self-sufficient and stabilize and find, analyze, and fund deals on their own. 2022 is to reach 1,000 people. This message has to get out there. I've always been an educator at heart. There's a lot of courses out there, and there's a lot of great ones. I think I bring a different perspective to the industry as it pertains to education, because I'm actually an educator, certified one, and got the plaques and degrees and all that to back it up and the experience. And just putting that information together with two of my greatest passions to continue to educate and reach one and teach one, so we can continue to spread the trend, and not make it just a trend, but a new norm amongst our culture for people to be out here talking about credit, investments, stocks, and everything in between, and continuing to make that cool and never go out of style.
Definitely. Love it. Love it, man. I think it's just inspirational to hear how far you've come, because, you started as an educator, as a teacher. And when you think about a teacher, you're not thinking about someone who might be building wealth on the side, who might have passions for real estate and so forth. So I think it just goes to show, it doesn't matter what profession you're doing now. You can be interested in real estate. You can want to build wealth and do these different things. So don't put yourself in a box. You of course had a passion for teaching and helping the community in that way. You also had another passion, and you're still able to teach. You're still able to help the community, help your family, help your friends. So I just think it's an inspirational story. And I'm just thinking back to when you mentioned you were a kid, just running around the houses and helping out your dad, working with your dad. And you got to see some of these people who own all these doors, all these properties. You're like, I want to be that. That's what I want to be. Like, how do you do that? And step by step, you're able to get closer and closer to that, to where you are now. And I'm sure there's even higher heights to reach.
That's the plan, man. I always tell people, everybody's in the real estate game. You either the landlord or the tenant, man. So the real estate and the investing thing is not for me. You are in denial. You're going to be a part of it, whether you are on one side of the fence or the other. I think it's super important for people to understand that becoming an investor, whether it's in real estate or what have you, doesn't mean you got to go out here and try to get 70 doors and try to double that every year. Like, that has just happened over the years for me. I didn't think that I was going to be there, but having some ownership is going to provide you a stable source of generational wealth, whether it's a small amount of wealth that you accumulate to be able to pass on to the next generation. It's going to provide you options, and it's going to provide you some sense of freedom, and that's what real estate is for me. Real estate, more than anything, is freedom and options.
Definitely. And before we wrap, can you talk about any courses or mentorship or anything that you offer?
Yes, so we established a real estate community where we just had our 1-year anniversary, called the MMI Blueprint Mentorship. The information can be found at mmiuniversity.com. It's a real estate community that is not one that we meet one day out the year or for a couple of days. It's a mentorship that's continued. Minimum, we have our mentees with us for a whole year. We meet once each week, every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're talking about all the nitty gritty of the real estate game, live, myself, and all the resources, how to find deals, how to stabilize your businesses, how to properly evaluate deals, how to properly leverage hard money lending, how to properly leverage personal credit to get deals, business credit to get deals. In addition to that, we have an online portal where there's even more information, a full library of all things real estate investing that people have access to for life once you become a member. And again, 100 was the goal in 2021. 2022 was 1,000 people for us to reach, to be able to continue to spread this message of wealth and growth.
Love it, man. Definitely make sure y'all tap in. Really appreciate you coming on the show tonight. I learned a whole lot.
Appreciate you having me.
Of course. I learned a whole lot, and I know our listeners will gain a whole lot of knowledge and gems out of it. Could you also let people know where they can reach you, where they can find you, contact you, and just keep up with what you have going on?
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and I just created a new TikTok account, Reek Estate. That's at Reek Estate. I'm always sharing a bunch of game on there. I also have a YouTube channel. You can also find that, Reek Estate. And, always give me feedback. I'm always open to it. I'm super consistent with the content, more specifically on IG. I'm new to TikTok. Definitely come through and show me some love on there. I'm definitely one to answer my DMs, if I, when I get around to it, I sit down there and I grind them all out. So yeah, hit me up. I'm always willing and open to answer questions and connect with the people.
Love it. Thank you again for coming on the show. And thank you to everyone for listening to another episode of the Black Real Estate Dialogue podcast. Please subscribe on whichever platform you're listening to this on. Leave us a 5-star rating and review. And also, if you want to join the BRRRR investing community, $1 for your first week. If you're interested, go to blackrealestatedialogue.com or click the link below in the show notes. Thank you all so much. I look forward to hearing from you all soon. Hi, everyone. Sam here from the Black Real Estate Dialogue. Make sure to hit that notification bell and that subscribe button, and to visit us at blackrealestatedialogue.com.